All right. And we are excited because Rachael Real, who's been a guest many, many times from Rachael Real Real Estate in Chicago, we have a guest on today, Christie DeSanctis. Hey, Christie.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
So, Christie is on the policy team at NAR, and we are going to be talking about a policy that Rachael and I keep seeing in the groups about potentially real estate agents becoming employees. So Christie, can you give us like a little bit of background on what you do for NAR and then a little bit about policy?
Sure, thank you. And thank you both for having me here today.
Mhm.
I've been with NAR for about 4 years on the policy side of things, focusing specifically on business and conventional finance matters. Before that, I actually worked on the Hill on both the House and Senate side, focusing on employment matters, including misclassification of employees and independent contractors, and healthcare concerns and a number of other issues. But that's really where I got my foundation on these issues and was able to transition that portfolio over to NAR, where I've gotten to focus specifically on what matters most, and that's the independent contractor status to this industry. So I'm looking forward to today's discussion about that.
Yeah, you're the perfect person for this discussion, I think, right?
Hopefully.
Absolutely.
All right. So what we heard or what I read in the big headline is like all realtors are going to like we potentially could be employees, but that's not really what it is, I imagine.
Yeah, so that's a headline I think you all have been dealing with for years.
Yes.
And most recently, I think there's been an uptick on it because of the rise in independent contractors in general.
Mm.
And I think there's a distinction here between these newer independent contractors and legacy independent contractors like real estate professionals.
Okay.
And how those independent contractors are being targeted, and how, as a result, real estate professionals get pulled into these conversations more so than they were being pulled in before.
Is the issue like, oh, sorry, Rachael, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, is this kind of coming into play now more because of things like Uber and Lyft and those are the types of things you're referring to?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
The gig economy workers is kind of newer classification of who's.
But what's the problem what's the problem that's being like attempted to be solved? Because everybody's paying taxes. Is it a problem?
Yeah. So the issue comes down to what benefits you get from being an independent contractor and what you may or may not have compared to what an employee gets. And that's really where that distinction comes down to between some of these gig workers and real estate professionals who thrive and enjoy that freedom and independence versus gig economy workers who may be seeking more employee type benefits like health insurance, workers' comp, things like that. So that's where this issue comes into play because of the tendency to want to classify those new gig workers as employees to access those benefits.
Okay. So I feel like we know what independent contractors are, but what is like, there's criteria, right? It's like, do you provide like a computer, stuff like that?
Yes, so I can just kind of more high level. This is also primarily regulated at the state level, so there are state nuances to those specific laws, and even more specific to real estate professionals in general, with specific language around what it takes to be a real estate professional to get that independent contractor status. But more broadly at the federal level, there's primarily two tests to determine whether a worker is an independent contractor. The first test is what's more commonly known as the ABC test. I can walk through those parameters. And then the second test is the common law test. Where we're starting to see the issues is with the adoption of the ABC test, which is a bit more stringent and tends to favor classifying workers as employees rather than independent contractors because of those qualifications in that test.
Okay, which are?
Yeah, so under the ABC test, and I'm going to read specifically from my notes so I don't mess this up. Hope that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
In order to be classified as an independent contractor under the ABC test, all of the following must apply. So an individual is free from direction and control applicable both under the contract for the performance of service and in fact. Second, the service is performed outside the usual course of business of the employer. And third, the individual is customarily engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, profession, business, in the same nature of that as a service performed. So where we see the issues translated to is that broker real estate agent context in that supervisory control. If everybody were classified as a broker, this would be a different analysis. But since that's not the case, and you have that supervision, it lends itself more likely to qualify as a potential employee under the ABC test. Again, depending on a number of other circumstances at the state level.
That actually, yeah. And when I read the HR 842, I did notice, and I wanted to ask you about this. It did read as though like the employees would be the non-brokers. But if you ran like a business like Rachel's a broker. She has her own Rachael Real real estate. But like, I'm not a broker, but I run it, I'm an S Corp. Okay. So then I would actually also be exempt from that, correct?
There is specific language that would help kind of that situation. And I'd have to go back and look. And I know with the House passed bill, there was some additional language to further help that case.
Got it.
But in any case, anytime we see the ABC test, we're going to be concerned and we're going to be out there talking to policymakers to make sure they understand the potential threat this poses to the real estate indust's independent.
And from NAR's point of view, what is the threat? Like we obviously have an opinion, but like,
we do.
Yes. And you guys are the organization that like advocates for us. So tell us your perspective.
Sure. So more broadly, as I mentioned, anytime we see the ABC test, we see it as a potential threat to being able to be classified as an independent contractor. When we see that language in federal legislation, it gets a little more real. We get a little more concerned and are out there speaking to our friends on the Hill and in the administration when we've seen this done on the regulatory side to let them know our concerns. Specific to the PRO Act or the Protecting Right to Organize, they included the ABC test in a very defined way. And our concerns are the spillover effect. If you're going to adopt it under this particular federal law, which is the National Labor Relations Act, there's no direct impact right now on our members, but we're concerned it's going to set a precedent. If you put it in this federal law, which is going to be the next one and the next one. And then even more broadly, if it gets anywhere close to the Internal Revenue Code protection that independent contractor real estate professionals currently enjoy for federal tax purposes. At this point, there's no concern that that's even being threatened, but that's why we want to get out there in front anytime we see any language that would touch.
That would cause us not to be allowed to be independent contractors anymore.
Correct.
How I read it and kind of like the road that I went down was, okay, well then you have, if I would think that more people than like me would then go ahead and get their broker's license because then we would be exempt. And so then you have like the people that are running their real estate business like a business now become brokers, which then there's less of a need for brokerages. And then the brokerages that are left, they're going to have the people that stay there are going to be more customer service, which in my head would drive down commissions, like potentially. I don't know.
You all know better than I do.
Okay.
That's a really interesting kind of scenario on how to play it out. And yeah, I think everything's on the table when this independent contractor status is threatened, and everyone will do whatever they can to make sure they enjoy those freedoms that they are.
Would there be a benefit of? For real estate specific, it's obviously like there's a lot of other gig economy type people, right? But like for us, what would be the benefit of this law passing? And let's say it took all that out and we were actually like employees.
I'm not sure I'm the best person to speak to the benefits of this law.
I don't either.
The potential benefit I could see with being an employee, having agents be employees, at least in a very high level scenario, would be the oversight from managing brokers for people who are new, for agents who are newer. Jen and I have had long conversations about, the quality of the agent, in a general sense, and how there's just the way the whole system is set up is not necessarily focused on the quality and the education and, high level service that an agent provides. So that could be the only benefit I could see is for an agent is being an employee versus an independent contractor. That and health
Well,
insurance.
and
but I've been paying my own
I was
health
gonna
insurance
say,
for 15 years.
I know,
It's probably
right?
not going to end. You know,
Well,
I'm used to it now.
And too, if the brokers are truly paying these employees and responsible for the trainings, the ones that aren't making the cut actually would no longer be able to get to keep their job. Whereas now we're the only cold call commission sales career where you get to keep your job if you sell nothing.
Right. And if the quality of what you provide isn't very good.
Right.
There is no difference between what a very low quality, low service, low outcome agent can produce versus someone who's at the complete opposite of that.
Right.
Which I think can be a big problem.
Yeah. When is it going to it passed in the House, right?
Yes.
When does it go to the Senate, or what happens?
Yes. So it's currently over with the Senate right now, but it has not yet moved. And that's for a number of reasons. So currently
it's too long, number one.
It is. It's a very labor-centric, extensive bill that makes a number of changes outside this particular issue that we are focused on. So in the Senate right now, to pass a bill outside of the special budget reconciliation process, which only takes a simple majority, you need 60 votes to pass this. Okay. Right now, there's only about 45 senators who've been on record supporting this bill. So they do not have the votes to pass this right now. And we don't anticipate them getting to 60. This is a very partisan issue. There's been no Republicans who voiced support on this bill. And there's currently 5 Democrats plus independents who are also not supporting this bill. And hopefully we'll stay in that camp to keep this bill from moving to the floor. So won't get the 60 vote threshold. However, that 60 vote threshold again requires the filibuster rule staying in place. Should that rule go away, it could take a much smaller amount.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
So the filibuster rule, that's a whole other separate, for the easiest way to explain it, a Senate tool that is used to pass legislation.
Okay.
So some of for example, most recently, the COVID relief bill that passed, and it's a huge economic stimulus bill. The reason they were able to get that through without Republican support, although there may have been a couple of Republicans, like I'd have to look back at the specific vote, was using the specific budget reconciliation tool to get to the 51 votes they needed. Otherwise, they would have had to get 60 votes, and they knew that would not hold up in the current political structure of the Senate with this such tight margin in the way it is. So the filibuster rule is what requires that 60 vote threshold, and I'm just going to pull up my notes to double check who those specific members are that are currently not supporting. I think we're still at 5. So Democrats currently only have the 48 seats, Republicans have 50. So without the Republican support of this bill, it's not likely to pass. So that's where we've been active, is engaging with all of the Senate offices, and specifically those who have not yet voiced their support on this, so that they understand our concerns with this and the potential threats to the industry.
So is your group, is it part of RPAC, or is RPAC separate?
So all under the NAR umbrella, but that's a whole separate political side of things. And I can speak mostly just to the policy side and the nerdy details on kind of the bill, but would refer to one of my excellent colleagues who is more familiar with the RPAC process. But other than we support RPAC donations and all of the benefits that come from that allow us to do our jobs on the advocacy side, to be out in front of these issues. And
so you guys work together, like you share common perspective, but you're separate.
Yes. So again, still NAR umbrella, but
right.
With
like different departments, sort of.
Correct. Yeah.
Gotcha. Interesting. Rachel, you got any other questions?
Do you think that, Christine, if this doesn't pass this time, do you think we can safely say that it's not going to pass and we're going to be able to remain independent contractors? Or do you think this is going to be something that's going to continue to come up over and over and over again?
So that's a great question. This particular bill has no threat on our industry. Like I said, it's a specific change under the National Labor Relations Act, and would only try to classify workers as employees for purposes of that law. doesn't touch the Internal Revenue Code protection that's currently in place. However, the ABC test in general, we have seen this come up in other bills, other federal legislative proposals.
Right.
So we're going to continue pushing back anytime we see this. And as I mentioned earlier, it's also potentially could be adopted on the regulatory side. There's been some recent actions by the current administration to pull back some rules of the past administration that we were in support of. So if this comes up, the ABC test on through a regulation, we're also going to push back in that space. But again, no current threats that we see. And should the PRO Act move forward, we would absolutely be pushing for and continue to push for a real estate specific exemption, similar to what they were able to get in California's AB 5. And in the House passed bill, we supported amendment language that protected state law definitions of employee-employer. So we'd continue to push for that support as well as that real estate specific exemption.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, we need to keep our status.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, we really,
the benefits far outweigh the risks.
Exactly. Right. Well, we really appreciate you being on, Christie. What do you have any other fun projects that you're working on that we should know about?
Oh, I don't know how much time you have. We've got lots of fun policy details. I will say there was an announcement this morning that President Biden issued his huge infrastructure plan that we're currently digging into to figure out. There's a number of housing specific provisions in there that we're going to be out there advocating for. Probably a number of concerns too on the tax side, because they're going to have to start to raise revenue to pay for a lot of the recent stimulus bills. So we're digging into that. It's kind of the first thing. And then coming up starting tomorrow begins Fair Housing Month, and we're rolling out a number of different events to support that, including new research for another event I'm working on April 8th on alternative credit scoring, and just a lot of fun things coming up in the next month leading up to mid-year in May.
Cool. So if people want to reach out to you directly, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. So my email is probably the best and fastest way, because I'm one of those who sometimes can't find my phone wherever I am in the house. Email is cdesanctis@nar.realtor. It's cdesanctis@nar.realtor.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate you being on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.